ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरभमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिदा जना. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are true giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on chapter 27 at Dakshineshwar. The date is Sunday, September 7th, 1884, and we're towards the bottom of page 519. Sri Ramakrishna has been talking to Adhar. The topic a little bit was about Adhar's desire to get a better job and make more money. So they've been going back and forth. One thing that's interesting to me is how free everybody was to argue with Sri Ramakrishna and to challenge him. Not just Narendra, Adhar does it also, and how Sri Ramakrishna didn't mind at all. You would think, normally, Guru is so much older. God realized they all recognize that, and yet they'll come back and challenge him with things. And he smiles and laughs, and it doesn't make any difference to him. They have a very nice type of relationship. So anyhow, Adhar has been talking about, well, what if Narendra wants to get a better job? He has a chance to make more money. This and that, won't he also do it? So they're going back and forth a little bit. So Adhar finally says to Sri Ramakrishna, I can tell you truthfully, sir, that not more than 6 or 7 persons like you have been born since the creation of the world. How he knows this. Anyhow, he's expressing his admiration and appreciation. And this is one thing that we notice with Adhar, how within a very short period of time, because he came later than many of the others, very short period of time, how he recognized Sri Ramakrishna, took shelter with him, how Sri Ramakrishna molded his life, and all, as we find out later, with his background that he is not destined to live very long, that his life will be short, and Sri Ramakrishna knew that somehow, and somehow condensed everything, so there's Adhar, that he would come to Sri Ramakrishna almost every day. Tagore went to his home and had meals there so many times, so they had a very special kind of relationship. Master, how so? There certainly are people who have given up everything for God. As soon as a man gives up his wealth, people come to know about him. But it is also true that there are others unknown to people. Are there not such holy men in Upper India? Now, Upper India, this is a phrase, I don't know specifically what it means. UP, yeah. Uttar Pradesh, they used to call the upper provinces or something also. Yeah. This is this Kashi place, traditional places for sadhus. And maybe he has something like that in mind. Plus, Totupuri came from the northern part. So he knows about the sadhu tradition there and everything. Adhar, I know of at least one such person in Calcutta. He is Debendranath Tagore. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, yeah, he's going to chuckle a little bit over this because he's had his own experience with Debendranath. This goes back to earlier when, before all of the very close disciples came, Sri Ramakrishna, if he heard of some great Pandit or some great soul or some great, say, Vidyasagar or somebody who was renowned and had great respected for their qualities and things, he would try to meet them. So he wanted to meet Debendranath Tagore, who, as it turned out, was a classmate of Mathur Babu. Mathur Babu and he knew each other. They were classmates. So at first, Mathur Babu hesitated because he was They were the most important family, probably in Kolkata at that time, huh? For wealth, for learning, for power, for reputation. The family it produced, of course, aside from Rabindranath, others who were renowned for art and music, painting, all sorts of things. It was fantastic, incredible family. And the whole culture of Bengal was shaped so much by the Tagore family. So Mathur Babu was a little bit hesitant. Then he said, "No, he'll remember me. We were classmates at one time and everything." So he took him there, and of course, Debendranath was famous because of the Brahmo Samaj. The Brahmo Samaj was, we can say, the initial inspiration was probably Raja Mohan Roy. But he was really the one who we can say was the founder of the Brahmo Samaj. And Keshav was so close to Sri Ramakrishna, a member of the Brahmo Samaj. So anyhow, he met him, and they seemed to have a nice conversation and everything. And Debendranath said something, he quoted from scripture, something about the world is like a chandelier reflecting the light of God. And Tagore said, "Oh, I also had some vision like that." And so everything was fine. And then Debendranath said, "You please come to our next Brahmo Samaj festival or something." And so Sri Ramakrishna said, "If it's mother's will," something like that. And then he said to him, "But please make sure that you cover your upper part." Tagore used to wear a shirt only when it was cold. If it was hot, he would just have his not even an extra cloth. He would take the bottom of his dhoti and throw it over his shoulder. Yeah, that was his style in those days. So Sri Ramakrishna said something like, "I can't promise to be a babu," something like that. So they left and everything was okay. And then he got a letter the next day saying, no, and Debendranath, he gave a very ingenuous reason. He said, "I don't want to see people criticizing you for not looking the proper. It'll hurt me somehow." I think he was more concerned that they'll criticize him for inviting Sri Ramakrishna. In any event, so he got a letter the next day that said, "Better you don't come if you can't be dressed like a gentleman or something." Anyhow, so they had a little bit of history that way. So anyhow, we'll get the answer. So Sri Ramakrishna says, "What do you say? What did you say? Who has enjoyed the world as much as he? Many children, a lot of wealth, property, big land holders and landlords. Yeah. Once I visited him at his house with Mathur Babu. I saw that he had many young children. The family physician was there writing out prescriptions. If after having 8 children, a man doesn't think of God, then who will? If after enjoying so much wealth, Debendranath hadn't thought of God, then people would have cried shame upon him." Now, Sri Ramakrishna is not being so hard on him. He respected him, but what he's saying is, don't raise him to the level of a god. Yeah, that he had plenty to enjoy in this world. Now, others are going to kind of stand up for Tagore, because, as I say, he was held to such a high level standard, and later Rabindranath, of course, his son, but even before that, he was considered to be one of the founders of modern Bengal and everything. So Niranjan's going to try to stand up for him a little. But he paid off all his father's debts. Master, keep quiet. Don't torment me anymore. Do you call anyone a man who doesn't pay off his father's debts if he is able to? Then he says, but I admit that Debendranath is infinitely greater than other worldly men who are sunk in their own worldliness. They can learn much from him. He devoted his life to the Brahmo Samaj and helped to create this whole system of worship with the different mantras that they do, congregational meetings, the whole everything that we see in the Brahmo Samaj. He played a tremendous role in all of that. Then Sri Ramakrishna continues. There's an ocean of difference between a real all-renouncing devotee of God and a householder devotee. Now, the householder shouldn't feel bad about all of this, because he also says that a householder can also realize God, that the knowledge of the householder and knowledge of the sadhu are the same, that they can have the same type of renunciation, but it'll be internal than external. But here, he's really going to compare him to somebody who gave up everything at a young age, didn't go through all of this enjoyment and everything. A real sannyasi, a real devotee who has renounced the world, is like a bee. The bee will not light on anything but a flower. It will not drink anything but honey. But a devotee leading the worldly life is like a fly. The fly sits on a festering sore as well as on a sweetmeat. One moment he enjoys a spiritual mood. The next moment he's beside himself with the pleasure of lust and gold. A devotee who has really and truly renounced all for God is like the chātak bird. It will drink only the rain water that falls when the star Swati is in the ascendant. It will rather die of thirst than touch any other water, though all around there may lie 7 oceans and rivers, full to the brim with water. An all-renouncing devotee will not touch woman in gold. Now, normally I don't use the expression woman in gold, but here he's really talking about the sadhus who remove themselves from society, that they really will go to a mountain cave, they'll live in a forest, they won't have any contact with the householders even. He will not keep them near him lest he should feel attached. Adhar. Now Adhar is going to put his 2 cents in. But Chaitanya too enjoyed the world. See, this is what I mean. How they feel so free to contradict Sri Ramakrishna. And how he'll tell them, oh, shut up, but there won't be any animosity or anything. Master amazed. What? What did he enjoy in the world? Adhar. Scholarship, honor. Now, this is before he had his conversion. He was a scholar and a very proud scholar. We know that. The Pandit Nimai. That he would go around and he was such a great scholar that all the others were afraid of him. In those days, they used to have contests. All these great pundits would get together and contemporaneously, just on their own, they would compose a Sanskrit poem or hymn, something like that. And he would pick out all the grammatical errors that anybody else did. His would be perfect. So they saw him, they'd run in the other direction, very proud. But when he had his conversion, then complete opposite, perfectly humble. Amanina manadena. This was part of him, that God can only be realized by somebody who has absolutely no pride, amani, and who gives honor to everybody. Yeah. So it's a very strange thing for Adhar to say, that he enjoyed scholarship, honor. Master, it was honor, honor, of course, as an all-renouncing sadhu who had the highest realization. It was an honor in the sight of others, but nothing to him. Whether you, a deputy magistrate, now he's going to poke Adhar a little bit. Yeah, don't think because you're such a big shot that it's going to mean anything. Whether you, a deputy magistrate, or this younger Niranjan honors me, it is all the same to me. And I tell you this truthfully, the idea of controlling a wealthy man never enters my mind. Surendra once said rather condescendingly that Rakhal's father could sue me for letting Rakhal stay with me. Now remember that Surendra was one of the ones who helped take care of monetary needs for Sri Ramakrishna, and later for the Bharananga Mutt, for the Kashipur Garden House, for Holy Mother, that he was a very generous person. But anybody who starts poking with regard to Rakhal, Swami Brahmananda, Sri Ramakrishna's son, is going to hear about it. So Surendra once said rather condescendingly that Rakhal's father could sue me for letting Rakhal stay with me. Rakhal's father, of course, was very angry at that time that he We read earlier that he even tried to keep Rakal locked in his room to keep him from going to Sri Ramakrishna. When I heard this from Manamohan, I said, "Who is this Surendra? How does he dare make a remark like that? He keeps a carpet and pillow here and gives me some money. Is that his excuse for daring to make such an impudent remark?" Now, Adhar is not going to stop. Interesting. Adhar, I understand that he gives 10 rupees a month. Isn't that so? Master, that covers 2 months' expenses. So he's going to correct him. The devotees stay here, and he gives the money for their service. It is he who earns the merit. What is that to me? Is it for my personal gain that I love Narendra, Rakal, and the others? Now, M is going to back Sri Ramakrishna. M, your love for them is like a mother's love for her children. Master, but even behind the mother's love lies her hope that the children will support her later on. So, as much as the mother's love is considered to be the most selfless, that still there's some expectation there. This is why I always find it interesting that they want everything for their children except for them to become sadhus. How many times we've seen that, even these great devoted families, is rare for them to be happy if the son wants to become a monk. So, but even behind the mother's love lies her hope that the children will support her later on. But I love these youngsters because I see in them Narayana himself. These are not mere words. To Adhar, listen, there's no scarcity of moths when the lamp is lighted. When God is realized, he himself provides everything for his devotees. He sees that they do not lack anything. When God is enshrined in the heart, many people come forward to offer their services. Now, this could be taken in so many different ways. That this is why Surendra comes to offer his services. This can also be said, this is why others shouldn't worry about making too much more money. He's a devotee of God, plus he already makes a good amount of money. Once, a young sannyasi went to a householder to beg his food. He had lived as a monk from his very birth. He knew nothing of worldly matters. A young daughter of the householder came out to give him alms. He turned to her mother and said, "Mother, has this girl abscesses on her chest?" The mother said, "No, my child. God has given her breast to nurse her child when she becomes a mother." Thereupon the sannyasi said, "Then why should I worry about myself? Why should I beg my food? He who has created me will certainly feed me." Listen, if a woman renounces everything for her paramour, she can say to him, if need be, "You wretch, I shall sit on your chest and devour you." Now, this is what Sri Ramakrishna called this tamasic attitude of devotion, which he liked. Generally, we think tamasic, if it's tamasic, that it should be given up. But he liked this attitude. You can say to the Divine Mother even, that I've given up everything for you. You have to reveal yourself to me. Yeah. This is Ram Prasad's attitude. No one will chant your name anymore, Mother, if you don't reveal yourself to me. Nangtai told me of a certain king who gave a feast to the sadhus using plates and tumblers of gold. I noticed in the monasteries of Benares with what great respect the abbots were treated. Many wealthy up-country people stood before them with folded hands, ready to obey their commands. But a true sadhu, a man who has really renounced everything, seeks neither a gold plate nor honor. God sees that he lacks nothing. God gives the devotee everything that is needed for realizing him. Yeah, this is that Yoga Kshema Vahamyam we read in Gita, is referred to so many times, that someone who really, and it can't be halfway, someone who really thinks of God to such an extent, it's impossible for him to her to look after daily needs, and God himself will provide. Whatever is necessary will be provided. Whatever needs to remain will be kept. So Yoga Kshema Vahamyam. To Adhar, you are an executive officer. What shall I say to you? Do whatever you think best. I am an illiterate person. Adhar, smiling to the devotees, now he is examining me. See how playful the whole thing is. Huh? It sounds a little bit of Abhiman. Huh? Yeah, so you don't have to listen to me. It doesn't matter. You argue against me. You're a big shot. I'm nobody. Huh? But there's no sting behind any of this. Adhar also takes it in a very nice way, smiling to the devotees. Now he is examining me. Master smiling. Dispassion alone is good. Don't you see? I didn't sign the receipt for my salary. God alone is real, and all else is illusory. This goes back, Sri Ramakrishna mentions this, that the priests all had to sign a receipt to get their salary. And he couldn't do it because he had no sense of possession, no sense of saving things, nothing like that. So he said, I can't do it. You can give the money or not give the money. It doesn't matter. Of course, they gave it, but physically he could. We know that was one of the traits with him. Not that he couldn't bring himself to do it, but if you put a pen in his hand, probably his hand would drop it or something. These things happen in a very literal, tangible way with Sri Ramakrishna. God alone is real and all else is illusory. This dispassion alone is good. I think it's nivritti. Anybody have the Bengali? That is nivritti and pravritti. Is not here vairagya. This nivritti is, on the one hand, path of renunciation. On the one hand, it means just go inward. Don't care about any external things. Otherwise, it can mean even the householder has to practice this nivritti, trying to find that divine presence within, not letting the mind go towards objects of enjoyment. So nivritti alone is good. Hazra entered the room and sat with the devotees on the floor. Hazra repeated now and then, Soham, Soham. I am he, I am he. Now this Hazra had great pride in being a jnani and had his own attachment, had his own ego, had his own need for money, and liked to show off telling his beads and liked to criticize the young boys for not doing enough japa and hard austerities and having a devotional attitude when the higher attitude is the attitude of knowledge, Advaita Vedanta and everything. So he was another one of the, we can say, characters. There were characters in this Leela. We wonder why are they there. Hridoy was more than a character. He tortured Sri Ramakrishna. The hospital didn't exactly torture him, but and how all of these people, they were either relatives or from nearby villages. They were all known people to him. How they failed to recognize him, or they would go back and forth. The Hazra, every once in a while, he would bow down before him. Thakur would say, "What is this? What are you doing?" And other times he would try to teach him and correct him and everything. So Hazra entered the room and sat with the devotees on the floor. Hazra repeated now and then, Soham, Soham, I am he, I am he. To Latu and other devotees, he often said, what does one gain by worshiping God with offerings? That is merely giving him things that are his already. He had said this once to Narendra. Yeah, there's an expression, half humorous, that worshiping Ganga with Ganga, offering Ganga water to the Ganga. What already belongs to it, we worship with Ganges water. So if we worship the Ganges, we do it with Ganges water also. This is what we're doing when we're worshiping God. But this can be understood in a very beautiful way. It doesn't have to be understood in a way that what a foolish thing you're doing. These things already belong to God, and you think you can offer them to God. But for Sri Ramakrishna, everything, of course, is our attitude when we do things. The master spoke to him. That means to Hazra. Master, I explained to Latu who the object of the object of the devotee's worship is. Now he doesn't go any further than this. Now is he saying that really it's your own self Is he saying that the Divine Mother dwells within your heart? He's not going into it here exactly. But anyhow, this conversation continues. Hazra, the devotee really prays to his own self. Now, Swamiji also used to say this at different times. But this to one's own self, it doesn't mean to one's own mind. Sometimes there are people who have no belief in God at all, that who are you praying to, that no one's listening but yourself. It doesn't mean that. I mean, it can mean that. And there are many who have full faith in this impersonal absolute, but not in the personal God. Yeah. But this other way of understanding is that, yes, God dwells within as the higher self, as well as the source of the whole universe, and hears our prayers from within. So this is why in the English translation, self is capitalized. Yes, of course, that's the translator who decides that. How Hazra means it, we don't know exactly, but Hazra did so much of japa and everything. Probably he takes it that way also. Anyhow, so the master, what you say is a very lofty thought. So lofty thought in the sense that higher than thinking that we're praying to a God who dwells in heaven somewhere far off and sometimes hears us, sometimes doesn't. The God dwells within as our very own self. The very high idea. Doesn't mean, of course, that we stop praying, we stop doing puja and all of that, but Hazra was pushing in that direction. So, Master, what you say is a very lofty thought. The aim of spiritual discipline, of chanting God's names and glories, is to realize just that, the oneness of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul. Yeah, we know that. But Sri Ramakrishna's idea is that this stick of ego is there. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't pretend it's not there and say, I am the ocean, when that I is so identified with the body. And then we have to work through this feeling of separation to transcend it. A man attains everything when he discovers his true self in himself. The object of sadhana is to realize that. That alone is the purpose of assuming a human body. One needs the clay mold as long as the gold image has not been cast. But when the image is made, the mold is thrown away. The body may be given up after the realization of God. But now, Sri Ramakrishna is going to expand on this idea of the self. God is not only inside us, he is both inside and outside. Yeah. So if we think the pitcher that's immersed in the ocean, water inside, water outside, that the very same water. So it's not simply inside, it's not simply that it belongs to the ocean. The Divine Mother showed me in the Kali temple that everything is Chinmaya, the embodiment of spirit, that it is she who has become all this, the image, myself, the utensils of worship, the door sill, the marble floor. Everything is indeed Chinmaya. Now, I wanted to spend a little time with this idea because there are many things that we read that we don't question very much, that we kind of accept, that in the highest vision, everything is Chinmaya. The way this word is formed, this Maya, and it's not Maya. It's not, this is a short of Maya. It means composed of. So we have Munin Maya. A pot is Munin Maya. It's made of clay. So everything that we see is somehow made of consciousness. Now, this goes against everything that we know from our very basic tenets of Vedanta, that consciousness can never be an object, it's always a subject. Right? That the subject can never be known, can never be objectified, that as soon as we objectify it, we remain behind, as the witness, that the Brahman cannot be known through the senses, beyond mind and speech. So how do we understand this from the Vedantic point of view? It's very difficult. I myself don't I was, before we have our class, I read through these things ahead of time. And sometimes I'll realize that I struggle with these things and don't have a very clear understanding of what it means. Now, I have some guesses at some way to understand it. First of all, that the mystic has these direct experiences, that Sri Ramakrishna, this was something real to him, that he saw it, and he'll talk about some of his experiences that way. So this is not something that we just dismiss as some funny idea, that this is, and this idea, all that exists art thou. That, now, so this is one thing. Now, also, in Upanishads, we have this idea that Brahman also manifests as prana. And that somehow there's some substance, some idea of substance to the idea of Brahman also, which goes a little bit against pure consciousness. Consciousness can never be something like substance. For example, if we think of of Brahman as being gold, and all of the objects we see, that gold, which comes with a particular name and form, then there's some idea that Brahman is the substance underlying everything. But how to picture pure consciousness being a substance and something that can turn into a visible object? It's very, very difficult to really comprehend that. Sometimes Sri Ramakrishna will say all of this is a manifestation of Shakti. That's a little bit easier. Some divine power that's manifesting as this universe. But this idea that we're seeing now, and Swamiji says also, you've been seeing nothing but Brahman, God, your whole life without realizing it. What does it really mean? Now, the other idea that we can think perhaps is that if everything's a projection of consciousness, then the substance underlying everything is consciousness. So in a dream, that what are we seeing? We're seeing something that exists within consciousness, or a projection of consciousness somehow, not exactly consciousness itself. Chinmaya and Chit, or Chaitanya, slightly different. Anyhow, these are all my guesses, but sometimes it's good to try to analyze these things. Do we really understand them? Sometimes it's better not to analyze too much. Because, as I say, for Sri Ramakrishna, when the mind rises to a level that he sees it and will see it, and Swamiji saw it when he was touched by Sri Ramakrishna. So there's certainly some tremendous significance to all of this. I sometimes think that Satchidananda, that this is the Sat aspect of Brahman that manifests as this whole universe. These are just ways for, trying to intellectualize these things, which were a direct experience for Sri Ramakrishna, this idea. But he has two moods. Sometimes he'll say, I see that Brahman, I see that Mother has become all of this. Other times he'll say, I see that consciousness pulsating within everything, that everything with people, that I see them, not that I see the physical body as a manifestation of consciousness, but I see like a pillowcase, and I see that consciousness pulsating within. So he had different moods and saw things in different ways. But this was a great conviction based on experience, and not just his own idea. We have this with the Vaishnava tradition, this Chinmay Nam, Chinmay Dham, Chinmay Sham. So that Krishna, he is the embodiment of consciousness. His abode is consciousness. His name is consciousness. So there was a whole tradition for these things. But very strict Advaitin will probably stick to this idea that the knower can never be known, that the subject can never be turned into an object, that somehow there's a projection out of Brahman, we can say. That so we can trace everything back, that we can see Brahman is the substance underlying everything. But then when we get back to the substance and consciousness, it's very difficult. I know that there was maybe still a little bit popular, but in the 70s, these quantum physicists, this Ken Wilber and other people, They would go tracing everything back to the atom, back to energy and everything, and somehow equate it with consciousness itself. I never quite understood exactly how they did it, but uh, that was something that many people were happy about, that they could do that. Sri Ramakrishna, it was really not that you go out and go deeper into the objects and find consciousness. You find it within. But we should never lose the essential nature of consciousness as awareness. It's not a thing. And how it functions as a substratum for other things will be as things dwell within consciousness. But anyhow.
You never believed him as Maya?
No, see, this is the other thing. For the Advaitin, rather than seeing everything as a manifestation of the divine or as Chinmaya, everything will be Maya itself. Yeah. And for them, everything will disappear at some point in the higher states of consciousness. So the question of mood and attitude a little bit. Yeah. No, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that he didn't like to think of it. Maya means for him Shakti. That's okay. Yeah. But if it's pure delusion or something, he wasn't fond of that. He used to say so often, I don't like to think of this world as swapnavat, as a dream, unreal like a dream. He didn't say that it's not a legitimate position. One can't realize the nature of the self by adopting that. He never said that. But he said that didn't appeal to him. Like, I don't want to become sugar, I want to taste sugar. It's not saying that it's impossible to become sugar. No, of course, that's our real nature. But his attitude was enjoy this play, this lila. So, yeah, this is a fascinating concept, how this pure consciousness can be seen. See it. We have another term, chidghana, that somehow consciousness congeals, like the moisture in the sky can be so intense that it'll appear as a cloud when it's nothing but the sky. It's nothing. It's there's nothing really like a cloud. The little wispy things, but it's made of exactly the same stuff that the sky is made of. There's no extra ingredient added to a cloud. Huh? Is there anything the cloud that's not in the sky? But it appears to be something. So we have this idea, chidghana. But we use this chidghana kai, that someone, body of a great soul is somehow different. This is also just a way of expressing our belief that there's special manifestation of divinity within someone. So I don't know how we want to understand. Everybody will have their own understanding, but everything is indeed Chinmaya. This was not a theory for him. This was out of his own realization. Chinmaya, very often he'll say, I see everything as Aishwarya, as this manifestation of the glory of God. Or the Divine Mother, Shakti, manifestation of Shakti. We can, if we want to take it that way, it makes it a little bit easier, for me at least. But all of these things, she has become all this, the image, myself, the utensils of worship, the door sill, the marble floor. It all goes back to that experience of the in the Kali temple. First of all, he sees these things disappear when the mind is soaring higher and going into samadhi. Everything will whirl around and disappear. And then later he'll see everything is a manifestation of that same divinity, that Vijnana state. The aim of prayer, of spiritual discipline, of chanting the name and glories of God is to realize just that. For that alone, a devotee loves God. This is back to that idea that it's this God manifests as the self, the higher self. These youngsters, referring to Latu and the others, are on a lower level. They haven't yet reached a high spiritual state. Now look at this. He's actually lower level than who? Than Hazra. Huh? So what he's really saying is what you're talking about is a very high exalted state. Not that you've realized it. It's only talk with Hazra. But for Sri Ramakrishna, there's Latu and Rakal and others, they're way above. Hazra is nobody compared to them. So I won't say that this is another example of flattery, but he's trying to be a little bit soft with Hazra, explaining to him that you're really off the mark when you say things to the youngsters who are coming. So they haven't reached a high spiritual state. They were following the path of bhakti. So he's telling him this path of jnana is higher than the path of bhakti. Now we know that for Sri Ramakrishna, higher or lower doesn't mean anything. Which is more suitable? For most people, the path of devotion is more suitable, and in that sense, better. But from the point of view of the jnani, then of course, this is Advaita Vedanta is the highest. So he's talking from that point of view. So they are following the path of bhakti. Please don't tell them such things as I am he. Now, Sri Ramakrishna himself will explain these things. It's not that he's against this idea, but don't say it in such a way that they'll think, then why am I doing japa? Why am I doing worship? Why am I not just sitting there realizing the self and everything? Yeah. Because Hazra, it wasn't simply that I am he, but why are you going to the shrine and bowing down and all these things? That type of Advaita that's not very well digested. Swamiji said undigested Vedanta. But at the same time, always doing his beads. Okay. Yeah, at the same time, always with his beads and everything. What he's doing, we don't know. Maybe soham, don't know. But yeah. I mean, he would have had, they were all Brahmins, they would have had some initiation, some mantra and everything. Who knows what he was doing? Like the mother bird brooding over her chicks, Sri Ramakrishna was alert to protect his devotees. Adhar and Niranjan went out on the porch to take refreshments. Presently, they returned to the room. Adhar smiling. We talked about so many things. See, everybody is so happy. You think that there's a little tension there. No tension. Others smiling. We talked about so many things, pointing to M, but he didn't utter a word. They all used to tease him for being so shy. He would never sing with the others or get up and dance, and he was very shy and didn't talk very much. Master, in Keshav's organization, there was a young man with 4 university degrees. Now, is this Hirananda? Probably, but we're not sure. There'll be a second reference to somebody with 4 degrees. But when he was the one who had moved to Sindh, where he was originally from, and he came to see Sri Ramakrishna at the end when he was very ill. Thakur loved him very much. He wanted to bring him to Sindh. He wanted to send him pajamas to wear that he thought would be comfortable for him. Thakur praised him very much, but this one is not going to get praised so much. So I don't know exactly, but he said there was a young man with 4 university degrees. He laughed when he saw people arguing with me. He said to argue with him, how silly. I saw him again later on at one of Keshav's meetings, but then he didn't have the same bright complexion. So who knows if it's the same one or not the same one, but anyhow. Boroda. Ah, they give the actual name. I see. Oh, with a question mark. Okay. So then M also didn't know exactly. Yeah. If it's this Hirananda, then perhaps because he married, he got involved with the business things and had very busy with his paper. But yeah, he loved him so much and was so impressed with him that it makes sense that it may have been somebody else. We don't know, of course. That's interesting because M doesn't usually guess. And if he knows, if something negative is said about somebody, usually he doesn't give the name. Sometimes he'll even just give an initial. Yeah. Of course, we don't know if that's the editor or if that's M himself. Huh? Probably M.
Boda also means more like the elder brother, right?
No, how is it written? It's 2 different R's. 2 different R's. Boro or Boro? Varada. It's spelled differently.
Yeah, what was the name?
So the name, Varada. Yeah. Sri Ramakrishna sat on the floor for his supper. It was a light meal of a little farina pudding, the suji payas, and one or two luchis that had been offered in the Kali temple. This was Thakur's standard dinner. And then later, of course, it was the only thing he could swallow, just this farina pudding, they call it. It's the suji. M and Latu were in the room. The devotees had brought various sweets for the master. He touched a sandesh and asked Latu, "Who is the rascal that brought this?" He took it out of the cup and left it on the ground. He said to Latu and M, "I know all about him. He is immoral." Latu, "Shall I give you this sweet?" Master, "Kishori brought it." Latu, "Will it suit you?" Master, "Yes." We spoke a little bit about Kishori last time. He was M's younger brother who remained very much devoted to Sri Ramakrishna and great devotee throughout his life. M had received an English education. Sri Ramakrishna said to him, "It is not possible for me to eat things offered by anyone and everyone. Do you believe this?" M was, of course, a scientific man, a little skeptical. Narendra also very skeptical, but they both said the same thing. Well, it turns out you're right every time. So M said, "Gradually, I shall have to believe all these things." Yeah, somehow they were verifiable. They could go back, and Narendra was like that. He would go and check. "Oh, I asked about that guy. Yeah, you were right. Yeah, how did you know?" He himself didn't know how he knew. It was just a sixth sense that he had. He somehow he could feel the presence or something in the object that was touched by somebody. So M says, "Gradually I shall have to believe all these things." Master, "Yes, that is so." After finishing the meal, Sri Ramakrishna washed his mouth. He said to M, "Then will you give the rupee to Naran?" This is the younger, this is not Naren, Narayana, he called him Naren. "Yes," said M, "certainly I will." The moon rose in the clear autumn sky and was reflected in the river. It was ebb tide in the Ganges, and the river flowed south toward the sea. Yeah, they had earlier talked about that, how it is auspicious to give something to somebody of such a pure soul. Thakur looked upon this Narayana as Narayana himself. Okay, that's the end of that day. Then Sunday, September 14th, 1884. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his room with Narendra, Bhavanath, the Mukherjee brothers, and other devotees. Rakal was staying with Balaram at Vrindavan and was laid up with an attack of fever. Narendra was preparing himself for his coming law examination. Now, this is also a little theme that runs through all of this, that Rakal's fever and Sri Ramakrishna's tremendous anxiety over the health of Rakal. And it goes back to this idea that Rakal was a companion of Sri Krishna in Vrindavan in the previous incarnation, and that if he remembered his past lifetime, he would give up the body. This was a conviction that Sri Ramakrishna had, even with regard to himself. This is why he never went to Gaya, because of his father's dream or vision there, that he was born from this Adhar from Gaya, and Puri also, he didn't go there. And with Narendra, when he said, when he knows who he really is, he'll refuse to live in the body. We don't know exactly what he meant, but if we take this idea with Rakal, then it'll probably mean the same thing. That he came as companion of Sri Ramakrishna from a divine realm, one of the rishis, or who knows. But so that Sri Ramakrishna, he was very nervous that something will happen to Rakal while he's in Vrindavan. And this Balaram, their family had a place there that they had established some temple and some they had their own home, that he had a place to stay and everything. So he was being looked after. Later, of course, after Thakur passed away, he spent a long time doing very hard austerities in Vrindavan. And Narendra is preparing himself for his coming law examination. This was another great source of conflict in the mind of Narendra. That first of all, he's trying to find a job to support the family. Second of all, he has to study and to try to pass this law exam. His father was a lawyer. It was expected for him to also be a lawyer. And also at the same time, Sri Ramakrishna wanted to see him as much as possible. So terrible conflict in the mind of Narendra. So he would study for his law examinations, and then sometimes he would just throw it all away. There's one time when Sri Ramakrishna was in Kashipur, and he was studying for the exam, and he felt so drawn to Sri Ramakrishna and so antagonistic towards the thought of having a career that he said, with burning tears in his eyes, he ran all the way to Kashipur to see Sri Ramakrishna. So yeah, we sometimes forget, even after the Baranagar Mutt was established, he had to go to appear in court. Even just before he passed away, the court case wasn't settled. How we had to do all of these things, and at the same time, having that ideal of the all-renouncing monk as his real feeling, real source of identification, but his duty to family, that he wasn't free from that till the very end. About 11 o'clock, Gyan Babu arrived. He was a government official and had received 4 university degrees. So now we know probably of at least 3 people who had 4 university degrees. I don't know why they would get so many degrees. Master, at the sight of Gyan Babu, well, the sudden awakening of Jnana. That's the meaning of his name. Gyan, smiling. You must admit, sir, that one sees the awakening of knowledge as a result of very good fortune. Master, smiling. You are Gyan, then why should you have agyan, ignorance? Oh, I understand. Where there is knowledge, there is also ignorance. The sage Vasishtha was endowed with great knowledge, and still he wept at the death of his sons. Therefore, I ask you to go beyond both knowledge and ignorance. The thorn of ignorance has pierced the sole of a man's foot. He needs the thorn of knowledge to take it out. Afterwards, he throws away both thorns. The Jnani says this world is a framework of illusion, but he who has both knowledge, is beyond both knowledge and ignorance, describes it as a mansion of mirth. He sees that it is God himself who has become the universe, all living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. Now, this is also a very complex issue. I don't want to torment everybody with the over-analysis, but for the Jnani, there's no going beyond knowledge. For the Jnani, the destruction of knowledge means destruction of ignorance. Then the job is done. The highest type of realization, you shine light and darkness disappears. There's no going beyond that. That'll be the highest thing. Now, how do we understand this? One thing, if we say this theoretical knowledge, the other thing is this idea of vijnana is something higher than that. Or because all of these examples also go back to the 3 gunas, that in order to get rid of rajas and tamas, we use sattva. And sattva is identified with knowledge. So even this idea, I am Brahman, soham, that idea, I am Brahman, that there's some feeling of I is there, that the real experience of that highest truth, there won't even be that I am Brahman. The mind will emerge, it'll go higher. There'll be no sense of I, the I will disappear. So then Brahman alone exists. Mother alone is there. This feeling I am Brahman, a little bit of still something that overcomes this idea I am the body, mind, and senses. That way the thorn that can take out the other one. But for Sri Ramakrishna, this if knowledge means only that we say neti nature to this universe, we kind of dismiss it and realize the nature of the self, then it's not the highest type of knowledge. Vijnana will be higher, where coming back, mind comes back down, we see everything as a manifestation of the divine. Chinmaya, or at least we see everything as divine, the Aishwarya, the glory of the divine Mother, something like that, and live in the world as a free soul. So he makes a distinction. The Jnani, he says, sometimes is afraid, very timid, doesn't want to get attached to anything. But the Vijnani is perfectly free. So we can also say that Jivan Mukta, somebody who's free in life, has gone beyond. Uh, Otherwise, at least from the point of view of Jnana Yoga or Vedanta, that knowledge will wipe away ignorance and it's for good. There's nothing higher than that. But that knowledge is something higher than just soham, soham. It's the real experience that the ego disappears in this higher state and reappears in the form of this ripe ego and with the relationship, and we live in the world and everything. So, yeah, this is just another example of sometimes these statements seem so simple. If there's knowledge, there's ignorance. We go beyond both of them. If we know knowledge of light, there's knowledge of dark. There's all of these pairs of opposites. But if we're talking about the highest type of knowledge from the Vedantic point of view, that wipes out ignorance completely. And then we see that ignorance had no real existence. Darkness is not a thing. It is absence of light. When the light shines on something, then where is the darkness? We can't even say it defeated the darkness. Darkness was never real. Darkness was just the absence of awareness, of this highest type of knowledge. So, yeah, Sri Ramakrishna, with his idea of Vijnana, it really brings in both this Advaita Vedanta and this Bhakti Yoga. This Jnana Mishra Bhakti is really such a full, rich type of understanding of things that doesn't eliminate anything, finds room for Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, everything all together. So he talks about this very often, that these two songs, that he says, the Jnani says this world is a framework of illusion. This was actually a Ram Prasad song, that he's talking about this initial attitude that we have to have, that in order to lose that attraction that the world has for us, that we have to see it as something transitory. Tagore talks about it all the time. It's something insubstantial, nothing there to really satisfy us. But the higher view is this other one. There was another one, what was his name? This Goswami. I never, huh? Aju Goswami. He used to follow Ram Prasad around and compose songs contradicting his songs. So he wrote this other song. This world is a mansion of mirth, Vajakuti. So Thakur liked that. So he says that Ram Prasad's song is the attitude that we have in 1818, but the richer attitude is afterwards when we can see there's all Leela. There's a play, we can enjoy it somehow. So this world is a framework of illusion, but he who is beyond both knowledge and ignorance describes it as a mansion of mirth. He sees that it is God himself who has become the universe, all living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. See how the language is always different. God himself, sometimes Mother herself, sometimes Chinmaya, consciousness itself, but to see everything as divine. Somehow, this is the vision of the God-realized soul, to see everything as divine. Even with this Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, this everything is indeed nothing but Brahman. This is one of the most important statements in the Upanishads, but not one of the Mahavakyas. Shankaracharya somehow restricted at least his understanding of Mahavakyas to this relationship between or the real nature of Brahman and the real nature of the self, not too much with regard to the world. A man can live in the world after attaining God. Then he can lead the life of detachment. In the country, I've seen the women of the carpenter families making flattened rice with a husking machine. With one hand, one of them turns the patty in the hole, and with the other, she holds a nursing child. At the same time, she talks with the buyer. She says to him, "You owe me 2 annas. Pay it before you go." But 75% of the woman's mind is on her hand, lest it should be crushed by the pestle of the husking machine. A man should do his worldly duties with only 25% of his mind, devoting the rest to God. Now, this also is something that we have to experiment with. That when we're doing, especially uh, working with our hands. It doesn't mean reading a book, talking on the phone, then very difficult. But doing some so-called menial work, while we're doing it, to have the mind fixed on repetition of mantra or thinking of ourselves as the witness, then we find that we can do that. And at the same time, we may say multitasking, I don't know if it is, but at the same time, with that 25%, be far more concentrated than we normally are. Because when we normally work, we have no idea how the mind is running around. And we're thinking of other things without knowing that we're thinking of it. If we're consciously thinking of some higher thing, the Ishtadevata dwelling within or repeating the mantra, and with full awareness, then that 25% is more than enough to work better than normally we would, with greater type of concentration. So we'll stop here then. This is page 523, middle of page 523. Continue next time. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatura Vikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tamarama Krishnam Shirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto all. Thank you, everyone. We will meet again next Friday.